We are live. Well, hey everybody, happy Monday. Every Monday night, 7 p.m. Central, Help a Teacher Facebook Live. I am Hal Bowman, and we have one of my favorite people on the planet. There's a lot of people on the planet, man. This guy is one of my faves for sure. I always say, I've kind of got this in my mind. I have this Mount Rushmore of educators and kind of carved into my noggin. And Dr. Jeff Springer is on that Mount Rushmore in terms of just all the impact he's had on the lives of kids and teachers and his role as teacher and coach and administrator, principal. And he's great. I can't wait for you guys to get to know him. He's one of my favorites for sure. Before we go any further, let me remind you, we are giving away some hard, cold cash tonight. And it's not really cash, but it's a gift card, Amazon $50 gift card. And all you have to do is comment, and we'll take all those names. We'll put those into a randomizer. And then halfway through the show or towards the end, we will we'll select a name and we'll call it out and let you know if you won the $50 Amazon gift card for you to do all kinds of incredible stuff for your kids in your classroom. All right, man. I love that you guys are here. And, I was thinking about today is I've been writing this book with Dr. Brad. If you guys know, he's been on the show. He's big on Twitter. And so Dr. Brad and I are working on this book, and we're putting together some just little chapters, little stories. And I was thinking about this. I'm not sure if this is going to be in it, but I thought about this happened, I don't know, it was a few years ago. And, I go to a ton of professional development sessions because, that's kind of what teachers do. Like, the best teachers are the best thieves. And it's all about stealing stuff, man. Go find some stuff that's really effective. Steal it, customize it, make it fit you and your personality and your classroom and your kids, and use it. And I'm the same way. I attend a ton of professional stuff, professional development stuff. If I find something that someone is doing, I'll take it, customize it, and call it mine. And I was at a conference, and I'm just looking for that one morsel, the one thing I can use. And it was a one-day conference. I'm sitting there in the hotel room, and I'm about 6 hours deep into this investment, and there's just nothing. I mean, it is brutal. I don't know if you've ever sat through something where you're just kind of texting everybody, like, oh my gosh, I'm in hour 6 of this thing. I've got to get out of here. And it's kind of like panning for gold, where you're just in this stream, and I'm just in the stream, and I'm swirling around all this soot and the sand and the pebbles trying to find this gold nugget that I want to take away. And it's just not happening. And we're about to close this session out. And the presenter of the professional development, she says, all right, we're going to do one more activity before we leave. And I'm thinking, I don't know if I can do one more. And she goes, it's called Calling of the Angels. And I'm thinking, okay, I definitely am not doing this one. So I'm looking at the door. I'm trying to strategize how I'm going to get out of here. And there's just no way, because it's a small group, about 50 or 60 of us. And I just couldn't pull it off. And so I thought, let me just get through this, and then I'll make my escape. And what she did, she took half of us, so about 25 or 30, and she had us put our chairs in a circle. And then the other half of the group there stood behind each person. So there's one in a chair and 30 of us in a circle, and one behind everybody. And then she started with the instructions. And she said, I want you to think back to when you were in school, when you were a child. Could be elementary, middle school, intermediate, junior high, high school, and think about a time when it was really hard for you and you struggled. It was really, really difficult. Go back and re-experience it in your mind. Feel what you felt back then. And she was really good at it. We all had our eyes closed. And when you have to do the thing with your eyes closed, I always peek just to make sure it's just not me. And everybody had their eyes closed. And I'm going back, I'm re-experiencing this thing. And she was so good. I mean, finally, after 6 hours, she's so good at taking you deep into this moment of remembering what it's like, how hard that moment was, re-experience something that you're going through. Maybe it could have been with your family, it could have been in school. And we're like in the moment. And then she says, what did you need to hear at that time? If there was an adult of influence in your life, someone that could take care of you, what is it that you needed to hear in that moment? And she, and so we all have this, it's a short phrase. What is it? And she says, everybody sitting down, facing into the circle, I want you to keep your eyes closed. Those people on the outside of the circle, whatever you needed to hear, I want you to whisper that into the ear of the person sitting before you. Put your hands on their shoulders, lean down, and whisper whatever you needed to hear into their ear. And then you're going to go in clockwise around the circle and switch to the next person. And so, and I knew this thing's about to get emotional, right? So I'm trying to toughen up, and my Adam's apple's doing that weird thing, and and now she's got the Sarah McLachlan, the Arms of an Angel's playing, and the lights are dim, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, right? And so everybody comes by, and they in your ear they whisper what that person needed to hear, which is exactly what you needed to hear. And what was interesting is I kind of kept track, and then we switched places, and then they sat down and we went around the circle and did the whole thing, and everybody's crying, and it's time to leave. And I realized that it was like we all shared the same information, and it came down to like these 6 kind of like basic things. And it was everything that someone said, whispered into the ear, was some form of, I appreciate you. I accept you. I forgive you. I believe in you. I am so proud of you. I love you. It was some form of those 6 phrases. And, I don't know if she closed the session as I would, but I think the point was for us to all take away is like, that's what your kids need to hear. Like right now, somebody is desperately needing to hear that. And I thought about that as we go back. And we're, this is after such a challenging time in our nation over the last 4, 5, and 6 months. Like, this is exactly what not just our kids need to hear, but our teachers need to hear, our administrators need to hear. And this is a time where, even if we're in our classroom in person or in our class Zoom online, even on the class Zoom, it's really important to look directly in that hole, that camera that's right around the frame of your computer screen, and be able to say those words. I believe in you. I'm proud of you. I accept you. I forgive you. I appreciate you. I love you. Whether it's a child, an adult, I'm not sure you ever outgrow that. All right, let's get into tonight's show. Dr. Jeff Springer. This dude, we've known each other for, I don't know, decade maybe. I was a fan of this guy before he ever knew about me, so I was following his career. And let's bring him in, man. We're going to dig into all the issues in America, and over the next 25 minutes or so, we're going to solve every academic and educational issue known to mankind. So, no problem, no pressure. Here we go, Dr. Jeff Springer. Welcome, buddy. How are you?
Hal Bowman.
Man.
It's a great day to be alive.
I had a feeling you were about to say that.
Hey, I love that story.
There's more to the story.
Well, there always is, but you didn't want to take the next 25 minutes. And I was starting to wonder, man, am I going to come out of the tunnel, or am I going to be in the locker room? Is this right? Are we going to really play?
Right.
So no, I was on the edge of my seat, man. So yeah, that's good stuff.
Here's the rest of the story. I was there. I'm going to call him out. I know he's not watching, but he's an amazing teacher. His name is Chris Coble. He's a PAL sponsor, teen leadership teacher out at Cypher High School. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Like, a ton of what I learned from that guy. Mm-hmm. Like how you think you're good until you see somebody who's really good, and then you realize you're not all that good. So he was the guy. He was this amazing teacher. And so he did not know that I was deep into this moment, and he thought I wasn't being serious, and he was being silly. And he comes by and he whispers some line from I can't remember what it was some line from a Seinfeld. And I'm like, what? I'm crying. He goes, dude, I'm sorry. I didn't know you're into it. But it's a typical teacher, man. Hey, man, let's get into it. So it is a good day to be alive, man. Tell me, now, when did that start? How many years ago was that?
Oh my gosh. I was coaching. I was teaching. It's probably the late 80s, and it was probably 100 degrees and 100% humidity. And we were on our way out to the football field, and the guys are, it's 2 a days, and at the beginning it's sometimes 3 a days, and something that we would all love to be doing right now, in the middle of this pandemic, all those things that we take for granted, that we dreaded, but we would love to be out there doing it now. But I don't know, it just hit me and I decided I was going to pick up the pace, and these guys they were dragging to the field, with their shoulder pads and and their helmet, and I go, "Come on, guys, man, it is a great day to be alive." And of course, it's like when the kids, when your kids look at you and go, "Dad, come on," you know. But so I think that day it was coined, and and I mean, I have kids at Watkins Junior High that started out with me in 82 to 85 that, they run into other kids that I had later in my career, and they'll go, "Does he still say it's a great day to be alive?" So anyway, that's been part of my repertoire for a long time.
Hey man, like before we get into what you have going on now, let's do a quick timeline. So your first year in the classroom, teaching school, what was that? What was it?
1900. No, it was 19. My first year of teaching was 82. So I was 11 years in the classroom. I went 3 years at Watkins Junior High, that brand new school.
Yeah.
And I was just like them. I mean, I was 21, and that was perfect for me. I mean, I was bouncing off the wall just like they were. But so I did junior high for 3 years, served my time, and went to the high school, the feeder high school, and we opened up a brand new high school, Langham Creek, 85, 93. I was a teacher and a coach, left, became a head football coach 1 year in Hempstead, Texas. And I was the assistant principal and head football coach. And yeah, so I went from a school, of over 2,000 to a school of 300. And so I was during the day disciplining my athletes that I coached in the afternoon.
Right.
So that was unique. So that introduced me to administration, but a whole nother program. We can talk about the exit of my coaching. So I came back to Cy-Fair, assistant principal for 4 years at Cy Falls, was in its third year. So it was a brand new school. And then I went to Jersey Village. I was a Jersey Village Falcon from 97 to 2002 as the associate principal at Jersey Village High School. And then came to Magnolia High School and finished my career 14 years at the Magnolia High School as the high school principal.
Hey, going back in time when you were the head football coach out in a country school, in those times, it's a different time, different place, different everything. I'm not sure people know this from other states, especially up in the Northeast, but back then they were dishing out some corporal punishment, and typically that came to the role of the AP. Was that you?
It was, but really, I only gave, we call them SWATs.
Yeah.
I only gave SWATs my first 2 years in education and in Cy-Fair.
Yeah.
And then about the mid 80s, you still had it as an option, but parents had to sign the waiver. You couldn't just do it, it wasn't just so I gave some, I came home one day, my first year, and I think I gave 12 pops or SWATs. And my wife's from Colorado, and she thinks pops are Cokes.
Right.
And I said, I gave 12 pops today. And she goes, "Well, who did you give them to?" I said, "No, honey, SWATs. I mean, you hit yes with a witness."
Right.
And but anyway, yeah, those days are gone. I mean, there as well as I do,
Yep.
there are still some schools in Texas, primarily in deep Texas, rural.
They're proud of it, man.
And that's an option. And what happens there is they get swatted at school, and when they come home, they get swatted when they go home.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, when I moved here from New Jersey in 1982, I guess right when you were starting, and 81, 82, and I remember hearing about it at school. I'm like, I'm trying to wrap my head around this whole thing. Like, that guy in that office is going to beat you with a boat oar? What? I just couldn't wrap my head around that's really happening.
Hey, when I was a player in Spring Branch High School, at Spring Woods High School and Spring Branch ISD, early 70s, we had a coach, and he was the equipment guy / the designated swatter.
Yeah.
man. So it was Coach Backus, man. You did not want to forget your socks at practice. If you had to go to the equipment room, it was a SWAT. Bend over, and you
That's so
lost
bizarre.
your chin strap. You know, So days have changed, baby.
Yeah, thank goodness. Hey, so you're one of those guys that sometimes when people shut it down in education and they retire, that's it. They're done and they go traveling around and they kind of do things. But I remember talking about retiring and you started correcting everybody, myself included, that you were not retiring, that you were repurposing. And when you first, I have to ask you, man, what was the impetus for leaving? Because at that time, over at the Magnolia High School, this is a fine-tuned machine. Great kids. The staff that you put together those 14 years was incredible. Great leadership team. I don't think there was another trophy you could win. You had all the trophies, you had all the banners. So what was it?
How at one point in my career, I thought maybe they might have to carry me out, one day. But there is really not great reward today in longevity. I mean, first of all, look, if I was still in it, like all our buds, I'd be dealing with,
Yep.
this situation. But if it's not a pandemic, it's something else. I loved education. People say, do you miss being the principal? And I say, absolutely yes. Matter of fact, I'm 4 years out and I'm still transitioning. I loved being the principal at a 5A high school with 2,800 kids and in a community that still feels small,
Yeah.
you know. But I don't miss the responsibility. The responsibilities. I miss my staff. I miss my students, no doubt. I just miss being the principal, and that's hard. That is a hard thing to be in charge or over, the mayor under one roof for 14 years and then not go to something. And
Yeah.
so the only way I was going to leave is if I went to something else that I was just as passionate about, or equally as, or I don't know, just in different ways. So my audience has changed, and so forth. But it's the greatest job. Being the principal at a big high school is a great job, and but it is a hard job. And sometimes I don't go that way very often. I don't drive that direction, but sometimes when I drive by, I look over and I go, how did I do that
Yeah.
14 years in one building? And but I did it because I loved it. And, and that's to me, that's the only way you can do it.
Yeah, man. Like looking back in those times, especially when I was still on full time on the campus, and you were too. One of the craziest things to think back on how we functioned on so little sleep. Like you would be at the swim meet, and then you're driving 2 hours to the track thing, and then you're coming back to a meeting, and then you got to go to the dance, and it's just nonstop. And just thinking back and like how, but you know what? Like that's the fuel, man, is when you love it and you're
Oh,
passionate about it.
yep.
And
And
that's the only way it works.
oh yeah, and all those things that you talked about was like the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
It may be what caused less sleep, but it also gave you, like you said, the fuel. It's what ignited you. Um, you know, um, I never understood. Of course, I would go to things that people would probably expect me to be at, but but I never had to be at all of them. And of course, in the Twitter age and the social media platform age, you can be they can track your whole Saturday,
Right.
based on your posts. And sometimes on a Saturday in the spring, like you said, state swim to academic to one act play to baseball to just, track, softball, you name it. And if everybody's winning, but, um, you're traveling.
Yep.
And so,
Yeah. And that, man, that was the other thing I always wanted. I thought was just special about that campus is, we always talk about every campus has this vibe. They have a feel where I always call it, it's what it is this culture. You walk in, you step 2 feet, 2 steps into a school, and you can feel it. And that was one of those campuses that was really crystal clear when you stepped in. As kids are changing classes, and you just feel, you can see the expressions on people's faces. It was the pace at which faculty members and leaders walked. There's just something special. You knew there was a buzz in the air, and it was a place you wanted to be. And it was so clear from I didn't teach there. I don't know. I don't know those people, but you could just feel it walking in there. And I always thought that was such an amazing thing.
yeah, it was my staff. You don't just create that yourself, and it takes time to do it. And I think that's what is so important. What was so valuable with being one place for so long is you could see the transformation. But 3 to 5 years is about the average stay for high school principal and or superintendent or any leadership, upper leadership from whether it's campus or district. It's cycles through. And if you can maintain, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You want staff members that want to and grow and improve. And when that happens, they get tapped on their shoulder, and other people ask them, "Hey, we'd really like to, see you in this role." And so you lose good people. But when you continue to cultivate good people, next man up, next woman up, so
Sure.
there's a lot of opportunity. So it took a long time to move the barge, but we benefited probably the last 6 or 7 years of all the things that are still out on the brick. And one of the being every year in the Washington Post and Newsweek is listed as top schools in the nation, most challenging schools in the nation. Those are all things that are still there, and things will be there for forever.
I think that's the cool part about the leadership and the staff and everything, that when people invested in it, we always talk about how can I get my teachers to buy in. It's such a different deal when you get them to invest in building something. And what happens is they built that legacy that, it's still going. There's different kids there now, a whole different staff, a whole different leadership team, but the legacy is still alive, still happening.
Yeah, it's crazy that you can be in a building for 14 years and it only takes 3 years for every single kid to graduate through. Who not,
Yeah.
I found out. Did I tell you this? I found out who I had my counselor who was still there. I wanted to know who the last kid that walked across the stage. He was a freshman when I was there. That was technically a Springer kid that walked across the stage his senior year. That had been there all 3 years or all 4 years. And so I found out who that was, and we gave that kid a scholarship. And
Ah.
so that was cool. That was really cool. Something you said that I heard you say, even it was not this morning, but a couple of weeks ago, but I heard it this morning on another podcast when you were talking about when every teacher, every employee, in the building, when they get out of their car, this really hit me, and walks to the parking lot thinking that it's all on them, that
Yes.
the responsibility is on them to contribute to this culture, to make this place the best place anywhere. You know what I thought of when you said that? I thought of, and I pulled this up. I thought of Winston Churchill's speech, their finest hour. And I thought about this, during this COVID, during this pandemic, this could be, looking back, our an educator's, a principal's finest, students' finest hour.
I
And
love that.
I went back and I wasn't gonna redo the whole speech. It's not very long. I mean,
Yeah.
his part, but he talks about the battle. He says, upon the battle depends survival, and I changed it to future generations. And he says, if we stand up to this opportunity, all families may be elevated, and the life of the world may move forward into broad and sunlit uplands. So he says, so let us, I mean, I'm thinking of, okay, so how do we get teachers ready? So let us therefore brace ourselves to our duty, and so bear ourselves that if the United States of America, and I changed this, and the Commonwealth lasts for 1,000 years, as educators, as administrators, as teachers will still say this was their finest hour. And
Yeah.
I thought, man, how can we come out of this thing even better than we were, before?
Yeah.
And I think that's what your words this morning said to me, spoke to me.
It is such a unbelievable opportunity, and I think that is where it's the same thing when we look at those schools that I call the outliers. I mean, they're just off the chart, unbelievable in terms of culture, which trickles down to everywhere, academically, athletically, everything. And what it's when they have those leaders in place that really see this as an opportunity, and then everybody on campus adopts that. There's a principal I was talking to. She's in Louisiana, and she posted a picture of her Zoom meeting with her teachers. Every adult on campus was on that Zoom meeting.
Mm,
Everybody that works in the cafeteria, every
mm,
secretary, the custodians were on the Zoom meeting. Everyone's a teacher.
mm,
That's when that shift happens, is when every adult on campus realizes, yes, we all have a different job title, but we all share the same role. Everybody here is a teacher. And then, like you said, the other thing is they're all convinced that they are solely individually responsible for school culture. Everybody believes it's up to them and them alone.
yeah.
And when they come into the building, in that school, when we made that transition with them and supported her through that year, they had the teachers, again, that's every adult on campus, vote, and teacher of the year voted by the teachers was a custodian. The
Mm,
teachers thought it was a gentleman. He's been there for, I don't know, maybe 90 years. He's been around a long time. And he's holding 5 and 6 minute classes right there in the hallway five
absolutely.
times a day.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so I would just say, let me finish real quick. He would have a quote every day. He would share it kids. He'd have a Bible verse that was important to him that he read in his devotional that morning, and he was telling kids about it when they were passing by.
Mm,
I mean, he's
mm.
holding class, man.
No, that's a perfect example of never underestimating, undervaluing the role that you play. And it's key that we recognize those people and remind them at those levels that we treat everybody as valuable, whether you're the custodian, the cafeteria worker, the school secretary, I mean, the classroom teacher, administrator. I never wanted to say that I moved up out of the classroom, that like I got a promotion. It was just a different job. I just had my sphere of influence changed. It didn't make me any better. It didn't, any smarter. It's just a different uh, role in education, and we're all designed for different roles. And so, yeah, you don't have to have the certificate to necessarily in the building. My wife was a registrar for 16 years, a school registrar, and she would come home and tell me about these families she enrolled. And my wife, I always thought, man, what an amazing teacher she would have been. But she was a teacher,
Yep.
and kids would come to her that she was the first face when they were moving from all over the place and from different states. And if they got lost or they needed a pencil, or and I say, see, honey, you make a difference. You're a lifesaver. Again, you don't have to have your own classroom the whole class. And but even I think teachers forget that they are leaders in the building, and it's so crazy that they so influence the whole campus, not just their classroom, but they are leaders. You know, we talked about victory gardens one year. Going back to history again, every classroom is a victory garden. And what are you going to do to cultivate your victories, on it, and that you're a lifesaver, that you make a difference every single day, that never underestimate the value of what you do every day. And we get. I know at this time of the year in particular, they can get so bogged down so quickly and defeated before they even walk into the building.
Yes.
And I was on a mastermind the other day, and we were talking with principals all over the United States, from literally coast to coast. And we were talking about teacher expectations, and one of the principals said, "You know what? Right now. I don't really like that word expectations. How about let's change the verbiage, like teacher opportunities or mutual agreement or collaboration, well, design, whatever, but to hit teachers as soon as they come in with, even if it's non-negotiable, to hit them with this list of expectations on top of doing something that no one has ever done before is crazy."
It really is. I hosted a call with a couple hundred principals a couple of weeks ago, and that was what it's about. And what I wanted to take them through is from the perspective of a teacher, what they have experienced over the last 5 months, whatever it is, since halfway through March. And what happened was, we all left. We all went home for spring break, and then we realized maybe we might not be going back for a week or two. And then it got to April. I guess we'll probably go back 1st of May, and then we never went back. And what happened was, these teachers had no closure in that relationship, and they dedicated like every ounce of energy and love and passion and purpose to have an impact on the lives of the kids, and there's no closure to that. And so there's a sense of loss. It's almost a sense of grief, like the same things that you would experience in grief, those same symptoms is what those teachers felt, losing that relationship without closure. And then, we have this with Mr. Floyd, and just the horrible things that we had to witness. And thank goodness we're having a shifting conversation, and now people are doing things differently as we should. And they're trying to figure out, how do I talk to my kids about this? Like their parents don't seem to be talking about this. And what if a kid brings that up, and our parents and our families of color? And then we went back to talking about PPE and being safe. And wait a minute, how are we going to teach these kids? What if one of my kids gets sick? What if I get sick? And then, well, wait a minute, how are we going to teach online if we're going to start online? And it's just one thing after another after another. And I asked the principal, I said, when was the last time you talked to teachers about what they want for their kids? As a result of this whole experience, if you could have anything, what's the real lesson? And talked about their why. Why are you here? Why these kids? Why this might be the most challenging year of your career? Why are you still in the game? And who do we need to be for our kids? And because I think right now that's what teachers really need the most, is to sit down with their school family, even if it's online or socially distanced in the cafeteria, and to have those deep, meaningful, emotional conversations to get reconnected with their purpose and reconnected with their passion and why we're there and what we really want for our kids. Right now, man, I think that is the foundation that we're missing.
Well, it's kind of like we tell the teachers that before academics, sometimes we have to push the desk back and build those relationships. We really need to do the same thing with our teachers. And, the activity you described in our opening, when I was in the locker room waiting to come out, maybe that's what they need. What is it that they need to hear from us? Instead of us telling, we need to be listening. And, and again, never been here. We've never been here before. I love the words together Michael Fullen talks about, and it ties in. And we're probably, you and I get on here, and we probably could do a series. So we've gone beyond probably 25 minutes. But in the second, I have this play, people, love, acknowledge, yearn. The second part, the second letter L, love, is ties into this combination of words that I love. Michael Fullen writes about, called impressive empathy. Not just empathy, but impressive empathy. In other words, right now, all those things you just talked about, there's a line in the sand. It's either one. People are either on one side or the other. Do we go back? Do we not? The racial strife that we have, division. There's division. But what we need is impressive empathy. That even if even if I mean in no way agree ever with what you're talking about, but I can at least treat you with human dignity and love and learning and and consideration and an open ear. So learning, loving, and listening are so key. That goes even beyond the regular empathy, and so that's what we need with our teachers. That's and I hope administrators that are welcoming, there's whatever the combination is, whether it's remote or hybrid or all in, whatever the situation with is their teachers, that their number one thing is, how am I going to take care of my teachers?
Yep. And I think this is a time where more than ever, we always talk. I mean, I say it every day of my life. Everybody gets sick of it. I always say, man, like, you've got to show it if you're going to grow it. You've got to be it so they can see it. And I talk about it typically in terms of teachers and kids, but right now, in terms of leadership, I think it's critical that our school leaders are able to sit down and have these raw, authentic moments with teachers to talk about why they're there and what they want for their kids. And what's the lesson of this school year when these kids are at the high school reunion in 3 decades and 4 decades from now talking about the pandemic year? What do you want that story to be? And let's create that. And I think because when teachers hear it from the leader, it gives them the permission to say what's in their heart. Like, it's in there, and teachers have those thoughts, they have those emotions, but sometimes we need to give them the permission to say it out loud and express it. And it's best because, like, I think just like a teacher in the classroom, the principal in the school sets the ceiling of what's possible. And teachers will only share as much and go as deep as much and expect as much as that leader does, just like in the classroom. I'm the limiting factor as an educator in the class. I'm the limiting factor ultimately in my classroom. And I can't raise expectations of kids that are past my expectations of myself. So I have to constantly be raising my expectations. And I think that is just a critical focus right now as I'm working with principals and teachers around the nation.
Well, that really lends into the acknowledgement piece of the acronym play. We as leaders, we gain, as you say, so much credibility when we are able to stand in front of our staff and be transparent with our motives in our vision, and that we're reflective, that we are openly reflective in our strength areas and in our deficiencies. This is what I'm going to work on this year. These are goals that I've set for my leadership. These are things that I want you to hold me accountable for. Acknowledging those things are so vital to pursuing, a school that's going to flourish.
Yeah. I can tell you who's a good example, over at up in Klein. Is it Thomas Helton? And when he was brand new to that campus, that was one of the first things he did was a survey of his hundreds of teachers in a giant school. And they talked about, what they wanted and where the improvement was. And he stood in front of them and said, okay, here's everything that you guys said. Here's what I need to work on so I can become a better leader in these areas. And then every time they had a meeting, he showed them, this is where I'm killing it and I can prove it, man. Look how good we are here, but I'm struggling here. And here's what I'm doing to get better. And he talked about it every time. It was refreshing.
Yeah. When I was that assistant principal, that brand new assistant principal and head football coach in Hempstead, that's what I did. Of course, back then it was paper copy, but it was a survey and basically the title was, how am I doing? Every 6 weeks, so, and then it's one thing to collect it, but it's the most important thing is to share it and say, okay, well, here, like you said, here's where I'm closing the gap, and here's areas that you say that I need to work on, and so here's the strategies that I'm going to be working on the next 6 weeks, and to operate, and function better, so I can be a better leader, and that gives. If you do that, then I just don't know how you can ask teachers to be reflective themselves if if their leaders don't demonstrate that, I mean, it's just like a classroom. Our
Right.
teachers are our students. So we ask our teachers to be successful with students, but yet we don't model that in the opportunities that we have when we're in front of them. That's something we need to continue to always keep in the forefront.
When we go through that acronym, people listening, loving, learning, acknowledge. Talk to me about the yearn.
Man, that one I tell people. I said this today once on Zoom. I can't say the word without smiling. When I was telling my wife, the first time I shared this was with my last graduating class when I did the kind of the state of the class, principal's state of the class, message. And I told them I was going to play more. And of course, they know me. Everybody knows me that I take a hashtag and an acronym and I'm good. So I did both. So it's hashtag play. And the yearn part, when I was telling my wife, when I was going through my talk, she goes, yearn. I go, yes, honey, yearn. I mean, to me, I mean, just think about the passion in that word. Think about when you were in seventh grade and you yearned for that, seventh grade girl that you never talked to, or heaven forbid, my parents took me on a vacation for 2 weeks and there was no cell phone back then. And I couldn't see my girlfriend for 2 weeks. I mean, so during that 2 weeks, that puppy love, you yearn. Well, think about that. The yearning in education is, what is it that gets you out of bed in the morning and in the door of that school building and in that classroom? What do you yearn for? Do you have a desire to be a lifelong learner? Do you enjoy ceaseless creating? Perpetual innovating. Do you have a persistence focus on implementing strategies? Because it's not one thing. It's only one thing to create the strategies, and then you have to implement. But a yearn to learn, a yearn to grow. I mean, it's synonymous with growing. If you don't yearn for what you do, then you just stagnate.
Yeah. It's so true, man. Like that's where the passion is. And I think for me, I was different. I'm like, I get it. I'm like wired way different. For me in the classroom, that's why I was constantly having to teach something else. Like after a few years, I was done. All right, what's next? I'll go pass an exit test and teach something else. Because for some reason I love the newness. I love the beginning. I love the feeling of being an amateur. I love the feeling of not knowing enough. There's something about that. And as soon as I got comfortable and I kind of knew what was coming, I knew what the kids were going to ask, I knew what the next activity was going to be, I knew exactly what we're going to do next week. I don't know, man. I was ready to move on to something else. Like, just because that feeling, man, I wanted that back. I wanted that first 2 years of being a teacher back every couple of years.
Yeah. I tell teachers, new teachers, and that's a conversation that you have with your staff ever so often, to go back and to think about why you became a teacher in the first place.
Yeah.
And to go back and get that, that idea, that you were going to change the world, but then for some reason, you allow whatever to change, to derail and to become disengaged. And so and during this pandemic and this quarantine and this restart, there is even a greater obstacle in some ways for some people. It's just an added, obstacle to overcome. But I believe teachers that are in it, they receive a calling and they accepted the calling. And so go back and reevaluate and have that conversation with yourself to reflect on why you became a teacher to begin with, and renew and retool and regenerate those feelings. What I loved about education is that every year you got a do-over. And really, you got several do-overs, because you got a do-over every 6 weeks,
Yep.
or every semester. you got to restart. The NBA did a restart. Well, we get to do a restart. The best restarts at the beginning, and if you can ride that momentum and keep it fresh, and that's, I think, the number one job of a school administrator or principal is to be the campus cheerleader, and to perpetuate and to make it just not a revival, but an ongoing, the long run, and continue to fuel the fire and to develop people. But as a teacher, first of all, you got to remember why you became a teacher, and also remember that what you do is so valuable.
Man, I'll tell you what, this is that, like that. I love the idea of the restart, and I've always said that like it's almost like it's like a sports season, man. Like there's spring training, you get your 2 weeks of PD in, and then the season starts, and then you get the All-Star break in the middle, and then and at the end, like the game's won in the fourth quarter. So now, and I love it. But here's what's crazy is for kids that restart can be on any day. Like I
That's
think
right.
as adults, we have to set it up. It has to be a Monday, or it has to be this monumental thing. Well, that's it. After
Right.
spring break, we're going to change this. But for a kid, I can't tell you. Like once I figured that out, I can't tell you how many times kids came to the classroom, and I'm in the hallway, the door's locked, and I'm saying we're not going in. Before we go back in there, we need to have a talk because things are not going the way we set up as a classroom family, and what we talked about 2 months ago. That is not happening. So let's have that talk again before we earn the right to get back in our family room. And you know what, man? They could do that on a Wednesday, third period. Doesn't matter to them.
That's right. You
Yeah.
know, well, in high school, a kid gets a restart almost every period because he has a new teacher.
Yeah.
It'd be great if we had positive restarts all day long, but we know, that's kind of ebb and flow, um, with our students and the time of day and all of kinds of things that are happening. But yeah, if you look at it that way, we've got a clean slate every period, every day.
Yeah, man. Here's what I was thinking of. The other thing when you were talking is this. I know a lot of teachers feel so challenged right now, especially those teachers that are here because they want to make a difference in the lives of kids. They are so challenged right now with the like, how do I build this relationship when we're starting online? How does it, I mean, how do we even do that?
Mm.
And I know it sounds so absurdly impossible, but what I hope they will do is to think back. And I don't, if your experience might have been like mine, but when I showed up as a first year teacher and the kids were yelling and screaming and running around, I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And I heard all that stuff about building relationships. I remember going home and thinking, how do you even do that?
Mm.
Like they can't even hear me. I don't even think they know. I don't even know I'm in the room. It seems so absurd in that moment too, but you figure it out. And the how, I know this is it just doesn't make sense. I get it, but I truly believe it. I just have so many experiences in my life where it's proven to be true that if the how is what I'm focused on mostly, it's really, really hard and it's a grind and it's exhausting and I burn out. But if I focus on what I want for my kids, why I'm in there and who I need to be and get really clear about that, and I can articulate that clearly. I dig deep into that emotion and feel it, and I journal it and I write it and I think about it and I change it. And it's fluid, so it changes every day a little bit. Once I get super clear, man, the how just becomes the more clear I get, the how becomes easier and easier and easier for me.
Mm. Yeah. Yep. Yep. That's
You,
good.
we get a lot of those questions. Well, how do I do? Like, what do I do? It, and years ago, I would have answered that question with just some nonsense. But now I'm thinking, I don't know you. Like, I don't know your personality. I don't know your kids. I don't like I think that's really the answer is digging down into those deep emotional questions and getting clarity there, and then like the how kind of happens.
Yeah. That's that again, that acknowledgement of the things that have worked, the things that haven't worked. I mean, if you don't acknowledge the things that don't work, then you can't make a plan to make change.
Yeah.
And so you've got to, if you go through the acronym of play, first of all, who are your people? You've got to identify who your people are. I mean, your inner circle. Who can you talk to? We can't, every teacher, even though they go in the classroom, close the door, it's them and 32 students, they they're not alone. They're on a team. There are other adults in that building that care about their journey, and so they've got to identify. They need a mentor or a cohort or something. Who are the people that care about them and want them to do well and learn from them. And then the next thing is just to love people. I used to think, oh God, how am I gonna? Like you said, I'm in there and they don't even know I'm there. Well, first of all, it takes time. They don't just love you because you're, Hal Bowman, a rock star the first day. Now, maybe the second day, yeah. But the first day, okay, so you got to earn it. You got to time, man. You got to put the time in. And that takes effort. and that takes energy and want to, and that's love.
Yeah.
And you have a moral purpose. And then the acknowledgement stage is that reflective stage. And then all of that leads to and overlaps with that passion and that yearning that will bring you back. That brings you back every day. I used to walk down the special ed hallway in the mornings, every morning, to make sure that they came back. They were angels, and I go, oh my gosh, they came back. The teaching and the love and the things that they did on a daily basis. Sometimes I wish the whole building could see the unconditional love that they had for these kids um, in their classrooms. And so, as administrators, we can't take for granted what our teachers do every day. But teachers need to also take care of each other and, have conversations and be reflective and continue to just rekindle that fire again on a daily basis, even in the midst of uncertainty and pandemic and chaos. They're going to be they may be the only light a kid sees all day long.
Yeah. I love that. They just now thinking back to all those schools in which I've worked, and they always have that section, the hallway, and yeah, man, that unconditional love, like those unsung heroes that are in the rooms with our and all of our kids with the life skills and the special needs, and then all the way down to the other department of just different types of disabilities. And in the school in which I taught last, it was one of the schools. We had lots of high schools in the district, and that was one where we had a large facility for so we had had a huge department, and I think like we as a classroom teacher outside of that department, our kids they just have different kinds of needs. Like if you're teaching algebra, there's, I think one of the kids really want to know, like, do you love me? Is this for real? like, is there a limit to that? Like when you say relentless, but really, but they don't have words to ask those questions. They have behaviors.
Mm.
And like those extreme behaviors really is that question. Like when we talk about loving a kid and building relationships, like what's the limit to that? Because I'm going to find out, and the way I'm going to ask is by my behavior. And never, I think just because of what we've seen with quarantining and what these kids have witnessed online, like if you just look at the simple daily news of 160,000 deaths and what 4 or 5 million, I can't keep up. It's another million every couple of weeks now of cases. And even with the challenges we have with injustices and equity and equality with across the nation, they don't show civil conversations. They show violence and they show yelling, and they don't show peaceful protesting on the news. They show looting, and so these kids are coming back. I think we're going to see more extreme behaviors than we ever, because there's so much confusion, and they're children, and man, that's a lot to handle for a kid.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
one person that they are going to trust in is their teacher.
Mm. Yeah. They're going to look for, the first day or two, Again, some schools are starting remote, some schools are starting delayed, whatever. But however they come back, at first it's going to be um, first day of school, but but soon after it's going to be settling in, and has what has kids are going to want to know. They're going to want to know what has changed. What's different other than I'm online. But even when we go face to face, kids are going to want to know, I think, what is different and what has changed since the last time I was in this building. And we're going to have to be prepared to answer or model or display. And if you're, and again, this is not like the end of the year where we've had 8 months to build relationships. This is from the get go, which is what's different.
Yeah.
We were kind of in the survivor mode, and we whatever relationship we had built, we were hanging on, to that life preserver. But now we don't. We're getting a whole new batch of kids, and so and if we don't the first day, I get to meet them on camera and not in person. Like you said, how do I do that? So how do you do that is you are creative, that you prepare, that there's no surprises. And easy to say,
Yep.
not easy to do.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Let's go through some of these comments. I love Tony here. Tony Warner. She says, a true test is loving. I love that she put this in quotes. A true test is loving those that don't, she put in quotes, deserve it. I know what she means by that. Like, it's that kid trying to convince you they don't deserve it,
Mm-hmm.
It's, and for me, man, what I always say about those moments, and this took years to do. I'm not saying this is the right thing to do for everybody, but it worked for me, is if somehow I made the shift in my mind where I'm frustrated with that kid. I'm so mad at that kid, and I'm so angry, and he's getting in the way of everybody else's education. Like, I do that whole thing in my mind, and I get to that moment where you're like going to send that kid out, and you're out of here, and I'm writing you up, and get out in the hall, that whole thing, where I get to that point, and then I had this moment where I realized this is the moment everybody else gave up on that kid.
Mm.
I'm there. Like, this is the starting line. I admit now we can teach. I wasn't really teaching before this. This is the moment for this kid. This is the moment where we begin to create this relationship, because I know for sure everyone else quit right here at this, because I want to quit. I feel it. Yeah. But for me, I was able to take that emotion, and that now became the trigger. All right, man, time to love this kid. Because this is where everybody else get rid of him. Everybody abandoned him in this moment.
That's right. And he or she's waiting for you to show him or her. Show me. Prove it. Show me. And again, that's time. And like you said, you're the lifesaver. You may be the.
Yeah, I love it. Just even on the camera, having that moment, because you could say, hey, Jeffrey, look at me. Like, and the kid is thinking, he's looking, you feels like now when he looks at the screen, he sees you, he sees those two eyeballs. Look at, man, Springer's really looking at me. There's another comment I saw up here. I want this guy, John McPhee. This dude won the $50 last week, I think. He is an actor on Broadway. I kind of got to know him online last week, and I'm teaching 2 classes at a college on the side. One is fundamentals of acting. The other is public speaking. Both are completely online. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I love that feeling. That's me, man.
Yeah. That's the challenge. Am I going to rise to that challenge? And then how am I going to meet that? And so, I think most people in that situation are going to. I mean, that's like like you said, when something's new, you're motivated to seek and to learn and to grow, and sometimes just jump off.
Yeah, man, these guys are taught like Tobin, of course, always talking about, man, stay authentic even in the Zoom. I mean, this is This is what it's still, one thing I've always did, even when I was teaching high school, man, I've always talked a lot. Man, I wanted them to know who I was and what it was about. I have pictures of my kids and want to see what I love, what I'm passionate about, what I work on outside of the classroom. Like they have to see that, like Rita, God rest her soul, bless her heart, man. She would always talk about how kids don't learn from people they don't like. And for me, there was always one step further. They can't like you until they know you.
Mm.
So we have to let them know us. Then we can generate some sort of closeness and family feel. And I'm not talking like a friend, I'm talking about
Right.
like a family member, somebody they know
Mm.
loves them and cares about them. That's the person they can learn from.
That's right. And they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah, even Tony's talking. She goes, Hal, I showed him my house today. Took him on a tour.
Yeah, it's funny that she said that because I was thinking, um, if you're home, what other opportunity do you have to have 32 high school kids in your house?
Yeah.
And they're not going to break anything.
Right.
So you just walk through, and
Yeah.
and I can show you right now all the things that I'm in the man cave right now. So they find out you are, here's pictures of my granddaughter in the back, my grandkids, and so they find out who you are and what's important to you, and you can do it. You can have a share, show and tell, or anything, what's good, what happened since the last time we, you know,
Yep.
so anyway, so many things that you can do. Matter of fact, a lot of things that we can't do in the classroom, probably.
Yeah. All those little things, man. I would still do it. I just I still talk about I can't remember her name now because I know her as Mama Went, but she got married, so her last name's different now. But I visited her class. I visit a lot of classes online, teachers, by the way, if you're going to visit your class. And so I visited her class, and I'm about to get in the meeting, and the kids can't. I said, well, what do you guys typically do to start the class? She goes, breakfast. I go, what? She goes, yeah, we all cook and eat breakfast together. And dude, I look on the screen, there's 28 little boxes, and somebody's cooking eggs. So he's got some Pop-Tarts. One kid's brushing his teeth, waving, and I thought, man, this is it. This is their deal. Of course they're going to learn. Of course they all showed up for this Zoom. I would.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's good.
Yeah. Hey, man. Thank you so much. We tripled our time that we had planned on talking, but I can't thank you enough. Before we shut it down, man, let me shout out to our winners put into the randomizer by Christine Laurush, who supports the show and puts a lot of the stuff together. Thank you, Christine. Our winner is from a teacher in the Bahamas, Dorel Darling. How about that? $50 Amazon gift card, Dorel Darling. Send a message to the Help a Teacher Facebook page, and then we'll hook you up. Yeah, there you go. Hey, one last thing, Dr. Springer. I know you're in the man cave, and and some guys, they get to your age, and what they
Watch
do.
it. Watch it.
Well, a seasoned gentleman, and they'll buy a silly sports car, or they'll put all focus in something. But there's one thing I've noticed about your life, and what you focus on a lot is right there, my friend. And this has become your focus and your obsession and love. And man, it's fun to watch online. Tell us about that kid.
Hey, it took me. Well, I have two girls now.
Yep.
I have Tessa K and Mia Rochelle. So I do Tessa time and Mia moments hashtag. And
Right.
I got a boy that's coming in January. So, but man, they broke my heart. They moved to Arkansas, and so I went from literally 2 years of seeing my granddaughter almost any day I wanted to see her to zero. And so anyway, they're coming. They're coming down in September for a couple of weeks, and I'm hashtag silly grandpa.
There you go.
Not just grandpa, but hashtag silly grandpa. And she'll tell me silly grandpa, and I cannot wait for that reunion. But it only took me 57 years, Hal, to realize my purpose. And that was and when the first little girl Tessa came, she changed my life and my priority complete. I mean, first time in my life. I mean, you know me. I have so many things going, so many plates in the air, so many passions in this repurposing. But if I had to quit, if I could make a living just babysitting, watching my granddaughters, that's what I would do. I mean, I'd do it 24/7. And but anyway, it's such a blessing. And yeah, when what used to be on the back wall was a lot more sport memorabilia, and now it's little girls and
Yeah.
my daughter and family, and that's what it's all about.
All right, man. Thank you so much for tonight, man. I really, really appreciate you. And man, I'm so glad you did not retire and you repurposed and you're still out there making a difference in the lives of people. And I love all that you have going on. And I love that you spent time with us. And I love you.
I love you too, brother.
Have a great night, man.
You too.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.